When we talk about reactive hypoglycemia or postprandial hypoglycemia, and that just means that it occurs after you eat a meal. And that can happen right after the meal or anytime up to 4 hours after the meal, and that's still considered to be viewed as reactive hypoglycemia. In most cases, this can be about insulin going up and sweeping out too much glucose out of the bloodstream too quickly. There's imbalances in the body that can make the insulin act a little bit overly powerful, almost kind of like a bully. But there's also situations where a person might be leaning insulin resistant, so when their body makes insulin, the cells don't really listen. So the body's like, hey, I really mean it. And they make more insulin, and then all of a sudden there's so much insulin that it sweeps way too much sugar out of the bloodstream. So this is what happens when the cells don't listen to insulin. The body can make too much, and then by the time it becomes effective, it becomes overly effective because of the massive amount of insulin available. In any case, when blood sugar goes too low, there's backup systems in place. There's other hormones that are meant to push glucose back into the bloodstream when it's too low. The problem is, if adrenal function is not operating correctly, that system may not be working. It's very common for someone to be dealing with adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion, and the reason this happens is because the body often doesn't have enough resources to function the way that it wants to function. So it'll call on the adrenals to say, hey, can you make some more hormones to help us function the way we want to function? It's like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But it eventually gets worn out and it can't operate that well anymore. So now we've lost that backup buffering system where the adrenals were going to help push glucose back into the bloodstream, and now we're left with this big sugar crash. One step that a person can take to really see some drastic improvement with their reactive hypoglycemia is to change the way that they're eating. They can change to a way that would reduce those spikes and crashes. It's in the sugar crashes that the real trouble happens, and the sugar crashes are usually stimulated by a sugar spike. So if we can change the way we eat to smooth out that blood sugar and keep it on a more even keel, a person can see a lot of improvement. Now you may be saying, but I've even removed carbs in the before and I didn't see improvement. And what we need to understand is that even a meal with just protein that doesn't have any carbohydrates at all could still create a hypoglycemic response. And the reason that is because if you have a big protein meal, that's a lot of amino acids that are in those proteins. Now, the body uses insulin to process amino acids as well. So if you eat this big protein meal without any carbohydrates, then the body's going to raise insulin levels to deal with all those amino acids. And now the insulin is high enough and it's going to sweep a lot of blood sugar out of the system. So you didn't bring in any carbs, but there was blood sugar in there. But while the insulin's dealing with the amino acids, it's going to cause blood sugar to go too low and create a hypoglycemic crash.